job. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Guitar really makes a difference for our life with the melody like that.
Yeah, really. Well,
It's a spiritual instrument. Don't tell anybody in certain camps that, but they don't know any better.
Oh my God, what's happening here? Oh, that's better. Okay.
Oh, are you giving class?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Well, take advantage of the mania.
It's not working.
I saw him on the altar today waiting.
He did that already. Hang on. Right, yeah, now he's better.
If you're
Go down a little bit.
It's not working. No. Alrighty. Okay, so today is the disappearance day of two great personalities, Srila Rupa Goswami and also Gauridas Pandit. So we're going to chant the prayers of the departed Vaishnavas before class. Jayanilo prema dana karuna pracho Jayanilo prema dana Sagrado na talaga pagtitaaban. Kahamor bata juga kahagabi aras kahamor bata juga kahagabi aras ekakare kota gelagagora natural. Passione cultivo mata, anale passimo. Passione cultivo mata, anale passimo. Goranda gunera nere. Tagele babo say sapa sangira sange J koilove say sabah sangira someday ye koilo bilas say sangan ayakan ne narota das say sangan ayakan ne prima donna corona braccio Gianni la prima donna corona braccio Jaya Jaya Thakur, Jaya Jaya Thakur, Jaya Jaya Thakur, Jaya Jaya Thakur. Jaya Jaya Thakur, Jaya Jaya Thakur. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya. Also Tada Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace. Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta goes. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrindigajai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindigajai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Machuranam Ki Jai, Jagadada Swami Ki Jai, Munamai Ki Jai, Srimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta, Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Shinabhavad Ki Jai, Namah Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Budale, Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Samani, Dinamani Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gaurvani Pacharani, Nivashesha, Shunyavadi, Paschachate, Shatari. Reading from this poem by Narottama Das Thakur, who brought the treasure of divine love, and it was filled with compassion and mercy, where is such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where am I, Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where am I, Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancers, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So today, again mentioning, today is the commemoration of the disappearance day, or days, of these two great personalities. And of course, Rupa Goswami, for us, is such an important personality because, guess what? He is actually the Acharya, the main Acharya, coming down from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore we are called Rupanugas. So a little bit of history here, and before we get back and get into his childhood. But that is Rupa Goswami. Well, let's talk about their family history. It's called the Saraswata family. Yesterday I was given actually a whole lineage of Rupa Goswami, which is really interesting. Someone gave it to me. And in the Saraswata family, the Saraswata Brahmins, so they're high-class Brahmins from South India, incidentally, even though they moved to Bengal. So he and his brothers, Anupama, they were called actually Dabir Kas, Sakara Malik, and Anupama. I don't have Anupama's name that he had before when he was working with the Muslims, but in any case, they were working with the Muslims, and the reason they were working with the Muslims at that particular time, or the Mughals, to be more precise, was that they had been threatened because they were so expert in accounting and management, strategic planning, and everything like that people are learning about nowadays. Then the Nawab, Hussein Shah, decided, I got to employ these people in my service. So there was the financial manager, the prime minister. Sanatana Goswami is like the prime minister. And so the Nawab was dependent upon them. So what happened is that they actually heard about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they wrote some letters to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read those letters, and when they heard that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was supposedly on his way to Vrindavan, and actually Lord Chaitanya hadn't really planned to go to Vrindavan at that time, but he was making an excuse of going to Vrindavan at that time so that he can meet with these two brothers in this place called Ramakeli, which is where they were situated. And so the reason Lord Chaitanya didn't want to go to Vrindavan at that particular time was that he was surrounded by an entourage of thousands of people. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided later on that it's not proper to enter in Vrindavan basically with a whole giant group of people. One should enter into Vrindavan in a meditative way, by oneself or with others. And, sometimes devotees take tours around there. But the actual way to enter into Vrindavan is just go there and meditate on Krishna's pastimes and the places of Krishna's pastimes. So, anyway, they heard, that is, Rupa, Sanatana, and Upama, heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was visiting Ramakeli, and they decided to go see him, and having natural Vaishnava humility. They didn't just run up to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and say, here we are, we are the guys who wrote you the letters. Please give us your mercy. And you see, this is a common factor. When the different Goswamis approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great humility. Like you find even Raghunath Das Goswami, when he approached Lord Nityananda in Panihati, he didn't just go up to Lord Nityananda, he remained way in the back, and Lord Nityananda spotted him and said, come here, I'm going to punish you. And he put his feet on Raghunath Das Goswami's head. So the same way, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, and of course Dabir Kas and Sakara Malik at that time, and Anupama, they actually stayed some distance, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spied them, and he said, bring them here. And they immediately fell down. This is another point of humility. They fell down and they put straw between their teeth. And that's a sign of humility when you take a straw, like lower than the blade of grass. You understand? It's the same thing. So a straw is like a blade, not exactly grass, but it's something like that. So they put it between their teeth, and they bowed down and said, we're fallen, most fallen. Of course, they also glorified Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema, Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurasena Namaha. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to them, you are my eternal servants, life after life. And he embraced them. And then shortly thereafter, they actually went back to their duties, with the Nawab Hussain Shah. But they weren't satisfied at that point. Once you've gotten the taste of Krishna consciousness, it's like your whole material life is spoiled. You can't take it seriously anymore. At least that was my experience. Once I heard Prabhupada chanting, I couldn't take my studies seriously. I couldn't take anything seriously. Of course, nowadays, we advise people that take it seriously because connect it to Krishna. Do well in the school because you connect it to Krishna. You're going to do a lot of service for Krishna later on. You'll need your education. So continue with your education. I advise people now, get as much education as possible when you're young so you can render more service when you're older, or graduate, or whatever. So at that point, Rupa and Sanatana lost all taste. And remember, not only did they work for the Nawab Hussain Shah, but they also had families too. Not much is described about their families, but they were married. Not much is described about, whether they had kids or not, but, you assume that they did. And so they just lost taste. It's called nirapeksha. Nirapeksha means not that you're adverse. Adverse means, you're Maya Devi or something like that. But you see everything in relationship with Krishna, and so you lose taste for doing any material thing, and you're just like, the highest point of that is when you become an avadhuta. He just like walk around. I don't have a taste for anything like that Avadutta Brahman in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyway, so they lost taste, and they decided to leave. And of course, Rupa Goswami, we're not going to talk about Sanatana Goswami and how he had to bribe the jailer, but Rupa Goswami, he was able to leave with quite a bit of money. Actually, it's described boatloads of money. And when he left with his boatloads of money, of course, he divided it up, you know, some for the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas, and some emergency he kept, which is later on used by Sanatana Goswami to get out of prison, and then some to his relatives. You know, I guess you got to buy them off or something like. It's like bail. You know what I'm saying? Bail, bailing yourself out of jail. So anyway, so he distributed his money, and then he actually heard that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Allahabad. And he went there. It was the first thing he did is he actually went to Allahabad. And for 10 days, he had the association of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So for 10 days, he got the instructions, the very seed of the information of Abhideya. That means how to perform devotional service. As we know, Sanatana Goswami was Sambandha, basically the material energy, spiritual energy, living entities, and how they relate to each other. And Rupa Goswami got instruction, the seed of Abhideya, which he later developed in terms of a very elaborate theology, which is basically his books are the law books for the Krishna conscious movement as far as the performance of bhakti. They're the law books. Sanatana Goswami lays out the basic ontology and theology, and Rupa Goswami lays out the practice of Krishna consciousness for us. Therefore, he's our acharya, Rupanuga. So anyway, so he got that information from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then Lord Chaitanya said, all right, you're going to Vrindavan. And he was feeling completely bereft. You know, imagine you have Lord Chaitanya's association for 10 days, and Lord Chaitanya sends you away. I mean, I would say, I ain't going. Isn't it? 10 days with God? It'd be like if Radha Golokananda said to me, you're leaving, Maharaj. So, and it was even much more intense, of course, the Rupa Goswami. So he was crying. So Lord Chaitanya sent him to Vrindavan. He went to Vrindavan, and he got the mission from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to write these literatures that would elaborate on the practice of bhakti, first of all, to find out the places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Lord Krishna, performed his pastimes thousands of years before, and to find out not only the places, but the deities that were installed by Brajanabha. Brajanabha was Krishna's great grandson, and he installed the original deities in Vrindavan. He came there with some of the remnants of Krishna's dynasty that had not disappeared in Dwarka. Of course, the main personalities who disappeared, who fought, were the demigods, or those who were descended from the demigod realm. And there were a few eternal associates left, so he came with them to Vrindavan, and he installed all these different deities. And these deities that are made of this particular stone called Vajra, it's like a black stone, are the original deities there in Vrindavan. And some of them are still there, but most of them have been taken to Jaipur, Udaipur, and other places to save them from the Muslims. So he gets there, and he has very little information as to where the pilgrimage places are of Krishna's pastimes. So he really has to And hardly anyone's there in Vrindavan, too. It's like nowadays, you go to Vrindavan and there's so many tour guides, right? And they charge you a certain amount of money. So, and there's so many high-rise buildings, so many rickshaws, and so many accidents. So he goes there. It's a village. India's just a village. And people are scattered all over, and he has to just keep traveling around long distances, just asking people, looking for different signs. And he's feeling, at the same time, I have to discover these deities. So Krishna reveals to him that you're supposed to worship the deity Radha Govinda. You're supposed to find that. He hears about that deity, that was installed, and he thinks, where am I going to find the deity? He becomes completely bereft, thinking, I can't find this deity of Radha Govinda. I'm supposed to worship the deity of Radha Govinda. So one day he's crying, feeling this, intense mood of being separated from his service. I can't perform my service that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given me. And so he's crying, he's crying there. And then a cute little boy comes up to him. And he says, what's the problem, Babu? Anyway, what is the problem? And he says, I'm looking for Radha Govinda, and I can't find Radha Govinda. And the boy says, I may be able to help you. There's this hill, and every day this cow comes, goes to the top of the hill. It's not like Dwadasadicha Hill, it's just a little mound. It's actually a mound rather than a hill. Goes to the top, and milk pours down from the cow's udder, it's just like, and then the cow goes away. Something's happening there. Come with me. And so he grabs Rupa Goswami's hand. Of course, we know who that little boy is. So he grabs Rupa Goswami's hand, and Rupa Goswami walks with him to this mound, and he sees the cow there. He says, oh my God. And he tries to look at the little boy, but the little boy just like vanished into thin air. And he realizes, oh my God, that was Krishna. So he goes to the top of the hill and starts to dig out around the mound. Something's happening here. And he discovers his deity of Govindaji. Actually, Radharani wasn't there. Govindaji at this point. Radharani was brought by him a little later. So he discovers his deity, and he embraces the deity. Can you imagine? You're digging in the ground, you discover the deity. Wow, he embraces the deity. And then he decides to make a temple for the deity and gets Radharani, and that's how Radha Govinda appeared. So Rupa Goswami did get a chance to meet with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later on. He went to Jagannath Puri, spent some time with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to see Rupa Goswami's writings, some of his writings, Lita Madhava, but actually, originally Lita Madhava and Vidagna Madhava were one book. When Rupa Goswami was thinking of writing about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan and Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka, he thought, let me just write one book. And on the way to Jagannath Puri, he had a dream, and Satyabhama appeared to him and said, write a separate book about me. And of course, that's the Lita Madhava. Of course, the Lita Madhava starts in Vrindavan, but most of the Lita Madhava deals with Dwarka, with Satyabhama actually joining Krishna in Dwarka. I'm not going to tell the whole story. It's an elaborate story, and I've done a narration on it. It's available on ISKCONDesiretree.com and also as an app in Android and the iPhone system. So anyway, so he gets instructed by Satyabhama, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs him also, and you have to have a separate drama. So he has the, like, at this point, he only has the introductory point or narration of the book. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually there's several things, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks him to read this introduction. And so he reads the introduction, and Swarup Damodar Goswami, he was quite expert in all these areas of poetry. He just like is amazed, everyone's amazed at his introduction. So let me go ahead. I'm just doing this from memory. Okay, we skip through all that. I will get through the boy. Okay. Okay. I already discussed the Dr. Madhava. Okay, and anyway, and also Ramananda Roy, they're very pleased to hear about this introduction and say this is pure nectar. And so he receives their approval. And also, Chaitanya has an interesting interlude in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya during the Rath Yatra recites this verse that basically no one understands except for Swarup Damodar Goswami and a few other devotees, about I am the same Krishna, I'm the same Radharani, and you are the same Krishna, but we yearn to meet beneath the, I think it was Vitasi. So Rupa Goswami actually writes about this, the meaning of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's verse. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so pleased with Rupa Goswami, he slaps him. He said, how did you understand? Anyway, not whack like that, but loving, like you lovingly slap someone. I haven't done that yet. How could he understand this? He says to Swarup Damodar Goswami. And Swarup Damodar Goswami says, only one we can understand. He has received your mercy. And therefore, only then could someone understand that particular verse. And of course, somehow or other, by the mercy of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, who's translated the Chaitanya Charitamrita, at least we can philosophically understand the meaning of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's verse, isn't it? That is amazing. If you think about it, in those days, it was basically only Rupa Goswami and Swarup Damodar Goswami and Ramananda Roy who understood the meaning. But how could we understand the meaning? That's Srila Prabhupada's mercy. It's amazing how Srila Prabhupada was able to not only translate, but to explain things in such a way that even, of course, all of you, I'm not going to criticize all of you for being lowly, but even people like me could understand that. Prabhupada has given us the highest. Sometimes you find people say, Prabhupada doesn't give you everything, therefore you have to go to me or here or there. But Prabhupada has actually given us the highest understanding of Krishna consciousness. Anyway, so later on, Srila Rupa Goswami composed the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is actually, as Srila Prabhupada said, a law book for our Krishna consciousness movement, which describes the whole process of devotional service elaborately. And then there's the postgraduate study for the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is the Ujjala Nilamani, in which you can really, well, I'm not saying that everyone should read this, but one who is qualified can actually begin to understand the intricacies of Radha and Krishna's conjugal love. So, I mean, here's a summary that I wrote down. Different types of lovers, assistants, those who were dear to Krishna, description of Srimati Radharani and other female lovers, as well as various groups of leaders, messengers and constant associates, as well as others who are very dear to Krishna, are all described. How love of Krishna is awakened and describes ecstatic emotion, devotional situation, permanent ecstasy, all these different things, disturbed ecstasy, the things that are described theoretically with some examples in the Nectar of Devotion, but more elaborate examples of these different spiritual emotions. And also Rupa Goswami is incarnation of Rupa Manjari, one of Srimati Radharani's primary assistants. Incidentally, just to mention, that the Goswamis were all devotees of Srimati Radharani. And none of them were, if we're following the Goswamis, none of them were actually followers of Chandravali. They're all followers of Srimati Radharani. Don't worry. It's not a political statement. Maybe it is. So another interesting story is about Rupa Goswami. One time, as he was performing his bhajan in this place called Tera Kadamba, he wanted to prepare something for his deity, Govindaji, and he also thought, I want to offer the remnants to Sanatana Goswami. So he's thinking like that, but I don't have any of these ingredients. And shortly after that, a young girl, beautiful girl, came to him and said, here, you can prepare some nice kheer and other things and offer it to your deities. And she just disappeared. He did it, boiled the milk down, and offered it to the deity, and then invited Sanatana Goswami to come and take the remnants. And Sanatana Goswami, after taking it, he was unable to control himself. Just from eating kheer, just like, started experiencing all these, what's called vyabhachari bhava, sanchari bhavas, where throughout his body, emotions. It's described that, it's interesting, in the material world, even pure devotees who have a body, a physical body, I'm not saying material, in this world can't really exhibit the full extent of the emotions, because if they did, they couldn't remain in the body. But at least to a certain extent. But simultaneously, they're in the spiritual realm, and they're experiencing these emotions. The pure devotee, Prabhupada explains, can be in two places at one time: spiritual world and material world. Actually, we were talking about this last night, how the pure devotee, it's just like someone who's entered into the virtual reality. He can be there and here simultaneously. So you want to the example, forgive me for this example. Let's say you're playing a video game and you're into a virtual reality video game. You could also be taking your prasadam at the same time. And so you're having experiences of both worlds. Don't repeat that example. So Sanatana Goswami began to experience the ecstasy, and he said, where did you get these ingredients? You're just going door to door and begging. And he said, well, the beautiful young girl came, and because Srimati Radharani is the focal point of the Goswami's devotion, Sanatana Goswami actually was the Siksha Guru of Rupa Goswami. Let's explain that, because he was the elder brother. And so he started to chastise Srila Rupa Goswami, never accept any gifts like this again. Never, never, never again accept these gifts. So these are some pastimes of Rupa Goswami, and also I wanted to read some of his literatures that he, a list of the literatures that he compiled. course, I mentioned the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I mentioned the usual in Ilamani. There's a Lagu Bhagavatamrita, which is a summary of Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita. It's an amazing literature if you ever get a chance to read it. It explains about Krishna's incarnations, and actually it's like a commentary. We mentioned the Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava, Stavamala, which is a collection of different prayers and poetry, the Danakeli Komedi, that's the tax pastimes, it's a whole narration of the tax pastimes of Radha and Krishna, which we tell when we go to Vrindavan. There's the Radha Krishna Ganaga Shtipika, and in which Rupa Goswami describes all the associates of Krishna and Radharani and what their relationship is. Mathura Mahatmya, the glories of Mathura, and it's interesting discussion between Varaha, the boar incarnation of Krishna, and the earth goddess. It's interesting. It's like a dialogue. And the Uddhava Sandesh, which is, of course, based on the story of Uddhava going to Vrindavan and speaking to the gopis and Srimati Radharani, the bumblebee, unreliable friend of an unreliable servant of an unreliable master, calling the bumblebee that. The Hamsa Duta, Dutam, that means how Lalita, the confidant of Radha, sends a message in the form of a swan to Krishna and Dwarka. Wow. Lita sends a messenger who takes the form of a swan. I haven't read that literature yet. But you see so many literatures. Krishna Janma Titi Vidi, a manual on how to worship the deity during Janmashtami. Wow. The Nataka Chandrika, the book about the rules of Gaudiya Vaishnava dramaturgy, doing dramas. And, of course, the Upadeshamrita. That means nectar of instruction, and 11 verses. And the Upadeshamrita was originally part of the Stavamala, collection of poetry. So that's Rupa Goswami in a nutshell. Oh my God. So as far as Gauridas Pandit, he's a coward boy. I could tell the whole story, we don't have time. And, Lord Chaitanya posed for deities for him. He was so attached to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda wouldn't let them go. And he said, you got to pose for a deity. And they made deities, exact replicas of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda. And those deities are being worshipped even today. And we know there's this story of his disciple, Hridayananda, who actually was so devoted to the deities that when Gauridas Pandit got upset with him, Hridayananda, the deities followed Hridayananda, and Gauridas Pandit went to see where the deities were, was the bank of the Ganges, and he found the deities with his disciple. He got so upset with the disciple that he was going to hit the disciple and even hit the deities, and the deities jumped into the heart of his disciple, and his disciple was therefore called Hridaya Chaitanya instead of Hridayananda. Son, your famous story about Gauridas Pandit. I believe he is Subal in Krishna's pastimes, and there's a lot of information I have. So, oh God, not much time. So, anyway, that whole story. His disappearance, was it? Oh yeah, in Vrindavan on the banks of the Yamuna, there is a place called Dir Samir Gauridas Pandit's samadhi is located here, as are his worshipful deities Shishi Radha, Shishi Shaima Raya. That's Radha Krishna deities that he worshiped too. Okay. Any questions or comments? We got to greet the deities.
It's amazing how these great personalities have these direct relationships with the deities.
Yeah.
The deities basically were totally alive.
Yeah.
It wasn't just static.
Yeah, like the story of Raghunandana too, the deities. Mukunda Das's son, who actually was able to feed the deities, and the deities just kept eating in front of him. And what to speak of what Shakshi Gopal, who for his devotee walked all the way across India. So don't expect that to happen with you and the deities. But at least they will shower their mercies so we can one day attain Krishna Prem and understand the books of Srila Rupa Goswami. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. In other words, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is empowered Rupa Goswami because Rupa Goswami understood his mind. Just 10 days of instructions. Of course, there were more in Jagannath Puri, but basically the essence of the teachings of Rupa Goswami were only from 10 days, right, in Allahabad.
Rupa Goswami basically, Lord Chaitanya didn't say that much, so Rupa Goswami did.
Yeah.
Chaitanya's mouthpiece.
It's amazing. Well, Sanatana Goswami had a lot more time in Benares with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I believe it was a whole month or something like that. 2 months. 2 months. Everything, yeah.
These lectures from which book? Oh, right. From the Goswamis? Yeah, he jumped around different books. I really can't put it down.
Jai Ho Rane, Jaya Krishna, Jaya Vrindavan, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Krishna, Vrindavan, Shri Govinda Gopinatha Madana Mohan. Shama Kunda Rana Kunda Giri Govinda Shama Kunda Rana Kunda Giri Govinda Galende de Muna Jaya Jaya Vrindavan Galende de Muna Jaya Jaya Mahavan Keshigatvam Shivata Dvadashakana Yeshigatavam Shivata Dvadashakana Jakatsabalila Koela Shirana Nanda Shinanda Jashoda Jaya Jaya Gopakan Shinanda Jashoda Jaya Gopakan Shinamate Jaya Jaya Denu Vatsa Jaya Bhisha Manu Jaya Kitila Sundari Jaya Purnamasi Jaya Gavira Nagari Jaya Jaya Gopishara Vrindavana Kash Jaya Jaya Gopishara Vrindavana Kash Jaya Jaya Krishna Sakara Bhatuji Juras Jaya Rani Nandana Jaya Rama Kata Jaya Rani Nandan Jaya Jaya Vrindavana Vasi Chachaja Jaya Jaya Vrindavana Vasi Chachaja Jaya Trishapati Jaya Nakakanya Gan Jaya Trishapati Jaya Nakakanya Gan Bhakti Jaya Boyra Govinda Charan Shri Rasamanala Jaya Jaya Radha Chandram Shri Rasamanala Jaya Jaya Radha Chandram Jaya Jaya Rasalila Sabha Jaya Jaya Jala Rasa Sava Rasa Sa Jaya Jaya Jala Rasa Sava Rasa Panakia Bapeja Prajay Prachara Shri Janama Parapadma Korea Smarana Shri Janama Parapadma Korea Smarana Dina Krishna Dasako Hey Namasang Kirtan Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindakara Jaya Radhe Jaya Krishna Jaya Vrindavan Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayan Hagorokinanavaran, 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 Jayan Hagorokinanavaran, Hagorokinanavaran. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Om Vishnupada, Paramahansa, Paramahansa, Sanji Shiva, Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanam, Bhaktivedanta Dosa, Shiva, ISKCON founder, Srila Prabhupada, Ananda Koti, Vaishnava, Namacharya, Srila Friends, say the whole Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Nityananda Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shiva Radha Krishna Gaur Govardhan Shai Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai